welcome to UQRUG. Last week was good fun. What did we look at last week? Last month, sorry.
Creating forms.
Oh yes, the forms. Yes, cool. So last month we had a look at making forms in R, so that we could then get you all to fill out that form to figure out what you wanted to look at next. And the most popular suggestion was to have a look at doing some spatial analysis within R. However, as you would have seen in the email I sent out, the geospatial community here at UQ, it's actually broader than UQ. We're doing a special spatial session in R last week. So did anyone manage to attend that one? If you couldn't attend that one, I've got a link to their details on our UQRUG page. Yeah, you can find that on the geospatial community website. So that's just here. So I'll put a link to the geospatial community into the chat if you do want to check that one out later on.
So today we're going to have a look very, very briefly at using Quarto. And so I'm going to go ahead and boot up into RStudio and show you how to create an extremely basic either website or blog or anything like that. And now, so this can sort of plug into what we looked at last time with Flex Dashboard, where we created, not last time, but a few times ago, where we looked at Flex Dashboard creating HTML files that way. Quarto doesn't yet fully communicate with Flex Dashboard. So it being a relatively new product, it doesn't always talk well with it. So an example of a Quarto website is actually the geospatial community page that I was looking at before, as well as the UQRUG website. So this is a website created using Quarto. It's a fairly simple website setup. We've got our index page, we've got an events page and a community groups page. And then also the events page is also linked to, sorry, the Zoom is getting in the way, is also linked to a blog style page. So Quarto allows you to create websites as well as blogs, and it does a lot of the hard stuff in the background. So if you were to normally make a website, you'd have to learn HTML code and CSS and learn all these bits and pieces. Whereas with this, you're able to just use R to create that. You can put CSS and HTML and all sorts of other bits and pieces in there, but you don't have to. A lot of those templates are made for you. So opening up R, I'm going to create a new project. And if you're wanting to make a Quarto page, you simply go new project, click new project. I'll just increase the size of my screen there. Hopefully that's tiny. That's better. So if you go project, new project. Normally when you create a new project in R, you just create a very basic level project. But today we're going to be going and creating a different kind. So usually you go new directory and you just go new project. But you can see that there's Quarto selections available. So you could go with creating a Quarto website or creating a Quarto blog. Now, they're effectively the same. The blog just creates a blog posts file that you could then create. If you made a website and then later wanted to turn into a blog, you could do so. For sake of simplicity today, instead of recreating things, I'm just going to create a blog. You give your blog a location and a name. I think I've put mine into my UQRUG folder, so let's just double check that. Yeah, I'm just going to put it into my testing folder in UQRUG, and I'm going to call this, UQRUG _ blog, and we're just going to. Now, if you don't have Git installed, you won't have this option available. But if you do have Git installed, ticking that box will actually save a step later on down the line when we do go to push that blog onto the web. Now, I'm not going to tick that box for those who don't have it installed, but I will go through those steps. But let's go ahead and click create a project. I'm going to go through this somewhat quickly because this is being recorded. I'm just going to turn that off. Teams. Yeah, I click out of Teams, but it turns out I didn't. So it's currently creating the blog for me, and that means it's setting up an index page, an about page. It's creating a posts folder. It's creating all sorts of things and pre-populating it for me. So here in my project files, you can see it's created a YAML file, which I won't go into too much detail about. It's created my about page, my index page, my posts. That's where all the blog posts go. A styles folder, a styles file, and a few other bits and pieces.
Sorry, can you say again what you run to get those basic ones?
Just to create that. So
Yeah.
to create that, you simply create a new project and then just choose Quarto blog from the new project options.
Yeah.
So by default, it goes to the visual editor over in here. And I personally don't like looking at the visual editor. I prefer looking at the code base side of things. So I'm just going to change it back to source over here. That's the same for QMDs, RMDs, markdown files in RStudio. So here's the index page. Basically what that will do is create a listing page, and a listing page is like a blog page. But if you wanted to, you could put we could just type some text in here. So this is my new blog page. You can put some R code in here as well. So if you wanted to, you could put a block of R code in. And in here, you could run some R code. So we could do 1+1. And then when we run it and create the page, it will, well, let's click render and see what that makes. So when I click render, what it does is it turns all of the QMD files that it can find into HTML files and then puts them inside this site file here, this site folder. So I haven't done very much yet. I've just created the default thing and then added 1+1 to the front page. And so this is the basic default page that it creates for a blog. So you can see it's got the title that I called it. There's the text I typed in. This is my new blog page. I've got my R code that ran and then gave the output of 2. Now, if I'd instead put some ggplot code here, it would have created the plot and I would have had the plot as the output. Anything I do in R, it will then put into that output there. So you can make anything really. That's really cool. The way that it does that quite simply.
Who is hosting the website? Outlining?
So I haven't yet pushed it to be hosted yet. So Carl's question, in case you couldn't hear, where is it hosted? And it's currently not hosted. So you can see that this is just, it says local host. So that's just, currently it's local on my computer. But when I do want to push it, I'm going to use Netlify to push it onto the web for everyone to see. So we can see here that it's created, we've got an about.qmd, an index.qmd, and any QMD file we create will then be turned into a HTML file as part of our page. So if we go to about, go to the source, I hate the visual side of things, we can see that the about page uses a specific template, it's got links on the page, and then it's got, like, again, more text there. So if we go to the website, have a look at that. We can go to the blog, go to the about page. We can see it's got the profile picture and then the links on that as well. The blog also has posts. So there's a specific post here. So if I go into this post, it did the same thing that I did, 1+1. And that post is located in our posts folder here. And every single folder that you put in here will create an individual post. So we can see there's the post with code and there's the welcome post. And if I go into that, there's an index.qmd that gets turned into a HTML file. So I didn't make any of these and I haven't edited any of these yet. I've only edited the index file to add this little bit of stuff here. So it creates a very simple template for you that you can then populate and add more to yourself. The geospatial community that I linked to before has a tutorial on how to use Quarto, and I find that the Quarto guides online are quite simple as well. So if you do want to go over this again, pretty much everything I'm talking about here is broken down into a little bit less. It's broken down into more steps on that tutorial page, and I will share that at the end as well. So let's say that this blog that we've created here is exactly the way we want it to look, and we now want to put that online. If you did want to customize it further, you can do so. You just add more bits and pieces in here. But let's pretend that we're all happy with this. To put this online, all you need to do is put it onto GitHub. So I'm going to load into GitHub Desktop. Now, if you're not familiar with GitHub or GitHub Desktop, we do actually have a class coming up in the library in the next couple of weeks on how to use GitHub. So I'm more than happy for you to join in with that, and I'll also share that with everybody at the end. Thank you. The steps to create a repository here would be to create a new repository, navigate to where we saved it to. So there's our UQRUG blog. I'm going to select that folder. And I'm going to call it UQRUG_blog. Now that part where I said if you tick the initiate repository, this is that step you would have saved when we created the Quarto blog in the first place. I'm just going to leave everything as defaults. You can populate those things, but for these purposes today, I don't need to. And I'm going to create that repository. And I'm just going to double check that that did successfully go through by viewing my files. Oh, okay, it did something strange there. It's put a folder inside my folder. That's not what I wanted it to do. Hold on, I'm just going to try that again. I'm going to see if I can resolve that one. Yeah, this is the folder I want. Create a repository there instead. Create a repository.
Still being something strange. You know what you're saying in the back?
Yeah, I'm just going to try removing that repository I just added. Why did that? It's frustrating. All right, I'm just going to remove this repository I just created. Close out of that repository, of course. Again. It always happens when you try and do things on the fly. Add local repository. See, I think if I'd ticked that box at the start, I would have saved myself a lot of hassle. If I select that folder.
Wait. I think, and you know what to choose? I think what is happening is that we don't have anything.
Oh no, it's selecting the
Okay.
overall outward folder.
Okay.
Create a repository.
Are you sure I want to try one folder off?
Yeah, the issue is that I skipped a step because I was rushing.
Okay.
Now if I remove that. Okay, going back to a clean slate there, this should now work. Sorry about that, everybody. There we go. It's because it did create a repository with the same name as the folder inside of itself. I get very confused. So if we go add a local repository, we navigate to our folder location. That's our UQRUG blog. Select that folder. And now it's going to prompt you to create a repository. And that's the step that I missed before. And now if I click create, it will work this time. So now if I close out of this, if I go show in Explorer, there we go. That's what we want to see. It's created the Git folder inside of the repository there. Okay, so if I now publish this to my GitHub, what this is going to do is it's going to put it onto github.com. And so if I navigate to my own personal GitHub, you just go to github.com, actually, that should be good enough. And then I go to this drop down here and select your repositories. Should now have a new UQRUG blog repository up there ready to go. So the way to turn this into a website is I need to go to netlify.app. There's lots and lots of different ways, actually. You can do it from within RStudio and use something like Shiny Apps, as you were suggesting, Carl. So within R, there's this button here to be able to publish this to shinyapps.io. There's a lot of different options out there. Posit Connect. Some of these you have to pay for, some of them have limitations. But in this case, I am using GitHub and Netlify. So Netlify is free to create an account, and then you can pay to increase the ability of that account. But I'm going to go ahead and just log into my account that I have linked to my GitHub account. I'm going to add a new site here and import that from an existing project. My Git provider is in GitHub.
Central.
And that then connects it to my GitHub. I then need to choose what repository I want to connect it to. So you can see I've created a few repositories in the past, but I've only given it permission to access repositories I want it to access. So I need to reconfigure it to give it access to this brand new repository I've made. So connect it to this one, scroll down to the bottom, and then select the repository I want to connect it to, which is UQRUG_blog. Hit save. And now I can then choose UQRUG blog as the repository I want to connect. And I can leave pretty much everything as the defaults, except for this in the published directory. I want to choose the sites folder. So when we created this blog, it creates a site folder, and that's where it puts all the HTML files. And that's what we want to build it from. So it'll use that folder to build it. Now, if I click deploy, it builds the website. So I absolutely skated over a lot of complicated things there, but hopefully you can see that the overall steps are fairly simple and straightforward. You go into RStudio and create a new blog project or a website project. Add that project to GitHub. And then once you've added it to GitHub, add that then to Netlify. And you then have a website that anyone can then access. So this is now live. So I go to the chat. Everyone can now access that page that I just created there, and it will take you through to this page as well. So I absolutely skated over a lot of things there. If I did want to then update it, what I need to do is go back to my blog, change something there. Just change it so it's 1+2. Click render again, and that will then recreate that page in HTML. Once it's finished rendering, it'll then open up my browser again. It should do. Well, we can see it's finished rendering in the console here. It's no longer rendering anything. And I then just need to go back to GitHub. It will see that I've updated things. I need to commit those changes. I need 1+2. Commit that to my main. push that back up to GitHub. And then once I've put that push through, Netlify will then look for that change and update the website. So if I refresh this page, okay, it hasn't updated it yet, but if I go back to here, I can actually manually tell it to push through, but usually it only takes a couple minutes for it to go ahead and update our page there. There you go. It's already made that change that I put, and you should all be able to access that website and see that. Now you will see that it's created like a very random web address for me, Lambert Tanuki, and then a bunch of numbers and letters. If you do want to change that, you can simply go to the site settings on Netlify and change the site name. So if I wanted to change it to UQRUG-blog, hit save. So long that's available, it will then change it. Now the link that I gave you before is dead. If you go back to this page here, it will no longer load. You have to go to UQRUG blog. And now you can all access it via that link there. So as always, today's sort of overview was hoping to be a very quick overview to show you the things that are possible. I've potentially left you all with more questions than answers, but hopefully those are interesting questions that you can then explore. So as always, that's the purpose of these overviews, is look at the cool stuff you can do with R. The thing that I love about this is it doesn't need a complicated Shiny server to run. So long you're posting relatively static things, you don't have to have a complicated server. A good example of this is another page that I created yesterday. I called it this Q website that I just did quite quickly. The reason I want to show this one, I haven't published this one online yet because I'm still complicated. The thing that I like about this, using Quarto like this, is that basically anything you can create in R, you can then put into this document here and share it with other people online. So if you've got, a research group and you're wanting to quickly make a blog or something like that, and you want to share your graphs and your data and your tables, you can do that using this. Yeah, there's a lot of really interesting things you can create in R, and I think that Quarto, combined with something like Netlify or Shiny apps, allows you to very quickly create a website to put it onto and not have to fiddle around with the HTML coding side of things and figuring out where you can put stuff. You will run into limitations with Netlify. So I think I can go to my overview, something that should tell me, there you go, I get a certain amount of bandwidth per month, but you can see it's fairly substantial. To run into that, I would have to have a lot of people visiting my website. And I mean, hopefully just the people in the room today. But if I ever do run into that, I can then, cross that bridge when I get to it. That's still taking a little bit of time to load. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to navigate to the rendered HTML file I made yesterday. So if I go to I made a very simple website that I haven't uploaded, and you can see it's just using that exact same setup, except in addition to these home and about QMD files, I also created a QMD file called, it's called map dash, but I renamed it to be data dashboard. And if I click on that, ooh, that is rendered funny. Oh, yeah, there we go. It's just taking a bit to load. So you might recognize this dashboard from when we did the Flex dashboard stuff. And this is all fully interactive, and we can share this with people online now. So if I did publish this and make this live, which I think I might do onto the UQRUG website, you could share this with other people around the world, however you wish. Cool. So that's my very, very quick crash course on using Quarto. Like I said, the Quarto documentation is pretty good. So that's just quarto.org. It has a lot of things for creating websites. You can use Quarto to also make, PDF documents and all sorts of things. It's not just for websites, but I love using it for websites. On their guide, they have a little bit to load today. They have quite explicit details for how to create websites using Quarto. Put that into the chat as well. So this goes into a bit of detail about how to create those things. So you can see those steps that I went through before within RStudio, creating a new project, creating a Quarto website, and setting it up that way, and then hitting render. So it's got those same steps that we went through. So if I did go through quite quickly, it goes into detail about how to use it properly, including details about how to use the YAML, that YML YAML file, to configure your website and make it all look nice and pretty in the way that you want it to look. I'll also in the chat, I'll also put a link to the geospatial communities workshop on how to create how to build a blog with Quarto, Git, and RStudio. So this is a very long extended version of the crash course that I gave you. That's about a 2-hour. It's one of those 2-hour classes that probably needs a little bit more than 2 hours. What I showed you today was like a half-hour condensed version of that. So if your brain's a little bit lost, hopefully the main thing I want you to get out of this is you can use R and Quarto to quickly make a website with GitHub. And if you have any follow-up questions on that one, feel free to reach out to us here at the library. I'm more than happy to help people navigate that. As always, you can contact us at the training email address. So I will stop doing Quarto stuff for now. If people have questions about that, please let me know, put them in the chat, unmute, or ask me here in person. Did anyone have any questions about Quarto at all?
One question, a couple of questions for me. Can I use Quarto as a replacement of Shiny?
Interesting. Sort of, I think. So Quarto's got a really useful page that explains how you can link different packages together. So as I was saying before, Flex Dashboard and Quarto do not currently speak together, but they are developing that ability. Shiny and Quarto. So a Shiny app allows you to, I guess it's got that server side of things that can run processes in the background and be a bit more complex than just a standard HTML file. I'm fairly certain you can, combine a Quarto site with a Shiny page.
Yeah, my question is, if Quarto can be run faster or easier to code, I would not spend so much time into Shiny anymore.
Yeah,
so just get myself into Quarto instead.
I think you're onto something.
Replace Shiny.
Yeah, so Quarto can take Shiny elements. But if you do have those Shiny elements, you won't be able to use Netlify. You'll have to put it onto shiny.io, which I'm sure you're happy to do. It's just the difference in what it takes to code it. So what Quarto does for you is, it uses this very basic markdown text and turns that into HTML code. So it saves you having to do a lot of the hard yards and the effort coding. But Quarto documents can include embedded Shiny components, there you go, or even simple Shiny apps. So yes, you can use Quarto and Shiny together. So that's a Shiny app. And there you go. So you just need to tell it that it's a Shiny server and it'll be able to run Shiny code within Quarto. So that's effectively the same as writing a Shiny app. Like you've got your Shiny server and then you've got your Shiny output, but yeah, so they do definitely talk together. I've intentionally avoided Shiny a bit because you can do so much in Shiny, but it's limited to you needing a Shiny server. Whereas I really like the idea of just being like, here's a HTML file, and you can open it without being online or needing anything fancy running. But obviously sometimes you do need Shiny. So like you need that extra ability.
Yeah, most of the time I will be using local HTML because my data are sensitive and they can't be really going online.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I explored crosstalk that time to do it without needing a Shiny app, which I need to talk to you more about another time.
And I can't still in putting any filters in the Flex dashboard, maybe in the
Still not
future.
working for you?
No.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that one. Any questions online at all about what we covered in Quarto just then? From either of you? No? Cool. Well, hopefully that was useful and interesting. I'm not quite sure what I'll cover next time, but we do have, thank you, Lauren. We do have a big long list of things that people voted on last time with our forms. So I will pick something from that list and go from there. As always, if anyone does have something cool they want to present, instead of me giving an overview and doing a crash course and something, I'm happy for anyone else to present something interesting they're working on in R. Just get in touch with me and I'll help you set that up.